Hi there everybody, it's Verity here from inkybutterfly.com. Thank you for joining me today for a card making tutorial. Let's put the light on so you can see. Right, so today the card I'm making is going to be a version of this particular card. Now this is the one that I made for the Creative Colour Challenge. So the colours I've used here are Blackberry Bliss, Old Olive and Smoky Slate. So those are the three colours. I'm going to stick with the colours, give you an alternative. Okay, this one I've used Petal Park as the sort of florals and black background there. So that large stamp, instead of using it with the florals to make that sort of statement piece in the centre, I've actually just used it to build that background, which I have done before. So it's quite nice and versatile in that way. Okay, and then obviously those blooms. So those are stamped with the outline image, and then I've got some Wink of Stella, which may or may not catch on the camera, and same with the leaves in Old Olive. Just stamp those out with the line image, and then gone over them with the Wink of Stella, and it bleeds out some of that line art to add some colour to those flowers. Okay, and a bit of sparkle too, of course. Alright, the sentiment though, Petal Park doesn't have any sentiment, so I actually brought out this one, Lovely and Lasting, which I don't think I've actually featured on a video. It's got a number of sentiments there. So I've got the Thinking of You here, and it coordinates with this lovely outline stamp and a punch. Okay, so it's all punches and stamps today. I'm going to replicate this though with a different stamp set. So what I wanted to try and do is show you that you can use a variety of different things. So I'm actually going to switch out for Flowers of Friendship, but keep hold of Lovely and Lasting. But equally, there's Something Fancy Dies stamp set, or should say bundle, and various other things. Raid your stash and just find a nice sentiment that's kind of bold, that you can either punch or die cut, and then that will be that. Okay, so let's get moving. So the card base is just a plain white card base, so we'll just get that what do you call that? Watch that, folded and burnished. Okay, so that's ready to go. Okay, and then the piece I'm stamping on is slightly smaller than I would use normally. Okay, I didn't get that out ready. I've got a whole, what I do is I I sit and I'll cut a batch of card layers, so I've got them in the full layer and the different layers that I use. Okay, so this one, let me just double check that measurement for you. The brain's a little foggy right now, just recovering from a bit of a cold. So it is, it's 3.5 by 5 1/4. Yeah. Okay. 3.5 by 5 1/4. That's what we're stamping on. Right, so I'm going to bring in a mat to protect my surface. Okay, and like I say, we're using that Flowers of Friendship instead. So I'm going to bring out this bigger image. It's got some fluff on it. Let's just wipe that off. Okay, and the Smoky Slate. Okay, larger stamp, so you just want to be sure that you've got all that inked up. Now, sometimes this mat sends the focus a little trippy, but it looks like it's behaving at the moment. So just light tapping over the ink pad up and down there. Okay, and we just want to sort of run this down this left hand side a little bit, stamping off a little bit. So it's a completely different look to the one we've got on the sample card. But I think it's still going to work out really nicely. So if I go this way, that's going to give us more of the leaves rather than the thing. Okay, and then likewise I might just try and just catch the edge there with some of those little leaves and stuff. So just keeping that to that side of the of the cardstock. Just pop this to one side so it's going to be cleaned up. Okay. There we go. So that's our background image, and then the other thing to do is to just because we're not matting and layering this, I've actually added the interest by using ink. On this particular sample I actually used a Stampin' Blend, an alcohol marker. You may not have the alcohol marker, but you may have the ink pad. So you can do that with an ink pad. Do not press and straight hard into these lovely soft foam pads. Okay, you just want to sort of dab it across gently. Okay, just some light tapping across the edge there. Okay, so this is going to come out a little darker than I would say the blend does. Okay, but you know, this is a way to do it. You could equally use the Stampin' Right marker if you've got the marker. Okay, and I'll just demonstrate how you would do it with a marker, just to just so that you know. Okay, so that's how you can get that there. Okay, obviously that's going to take a minute to dry. With an alcohol marker it wouldn't take so long. They dry quite quickly, so that's there done. That's how you would do it with an ink pad. Let's just close that up, she says. So whether you use a Stampin' Right marker or a alcohol marker, I would use the brush end. Okay, and let me just grab this piece of scrap here. Okay, and if I'd have stamped on this image, on this piece of paper on this side, what I don't want is to accidentally slip onto my image. So if you turn it so that pen's in your dominant hand and your image is facing away in your non-dominant hand. Okay, so for you right-handers, we'd have it facing to the left. Obviously I'm left-handed, so I'm going to hold it like this. Use the brush end and just run that marker across the edge there, and you can go over that a couple of times. Okay, and that way if you slip you'll go on the back and not over your image. Okay, alright, and you did it's exactly the same technique for the alcohol marker. Okay, so what I find with the alcohol markers is that they bleed into that raw edge that you've cut a little bit more. So, wrong end. So again, if I use this one, it's smoother for a start off, and like I say, it starts to bleed into the edge. So it kind of depends on what kind of look you're going for, but you can use any of those methods to add that inking around the panel, just to make it pop a little bit. And that's it for the background, so we'll just pop that to one side. Okay, and then like we've said before, because this mat, where's my cloth? This is what I have to do. This mat is wipe clean, so we can just do that and we're good to go. Okay, so we need to stamp flowers and leaves. So I've got some scraps of card here that we're going to do our stamping on. So Blackberry Bliss is the colour for the florals. Now you can use, obviously I'm sticking to a colour sort of palette for this particular make, so I'm using Blackberry Bliss, but there obviously is a bunch of colours that you could use. But what I will say is, if you want to do the you know, pull out the colour with the wink, the deeper colours work best to get that effect. And you want to do it reasonably soon after you've stamped it as well, because even these darker inks, you know, they'll set, and once they're dried in, they're harder to pull out. could equally, you don't have to use the Wink of Stella, you could use the blender pens that I use with the watercolour pencils. Go around the edge on these ones a little bit, because that's sort of how the line art kind of does that. And I'm not really too fussed about going over the edges a little bit. They are going to be punched out. There will be a bit of a white border around them, but I think it'll just give them a bit of a softness and a bit of interest. So not being too fussy about it. Or you can just use a very damp, and I say damp because we don't want too much water on this basic white cardstock. Damp paintbrush would also do it, because it's all just water-based ink basically at the end of the day. Old Olive. And then I'm just going to observe my punch just for a second, just to make sure I've got that orientated in the right direction. So I don't often use the leaves in this set. So again, I'm just going to spread these out. Don't really know how many I need, so we'll do a few. And again, just rubbing over those, and it'll only give you a hint of colour on these ones, believe it or not. And the more you rub, the more colour you'll get, but obviously you don't want to be pilling your cardstock. Okay, so it's really quite subtle there, but say in real life it shows a lot more. This smaller leaf, again, I'm just going to eyeball my punch, because I don't want to know which orientation it's going to be in. Now I already know that I'm going to have to do these ones in a slightly different way, so I'm going to pop those like that on this particular image. And again, we can, so I've gone into that quite quickly, which means I've got a lot more colour coming out on here. And again, if it's a bit water coloury or whatever, then I'm not too fussed about that. So now we need to just get punching. So those of you who've watched before will know that when I use this flowers and leaves punch, which is a great standalone punch as well, by the way, it's easier to well, I think it's easier to punch these out as sort of a strip, and you space them apart so that you don't get your other images cut into by these sort of side pieces here. So this is how I use this punch. Okay, there are ways to make templates and, you know, do your stamping so that you build it up so that it all lines up with your punch. I think that sort of just boils down to how much you want to do in terms of prep and stuff like that. I just don't. Okay, do exactly the same with the flowers, the small flowers I should say. Okay, so once you've got this bit done, don't want any of these little bits, by the way, to end up inside your punch. It's going to jam your mechanism, so that's why I'm just taking the time just to make sure that all those little bits just fall out. Okay, trying to collect the bits I want and then clear away those little pieces of debris. Okay, and again, you know, we're punching out 3 lots of each of those, but I don't know whether I'll be using all of them or not. Now for this leaf, okay, because it's in the middle of the image, right? So if we work across like this, we'll only ever be punching into the scrap. If we just start on this side, you're going to be punching into your images. Do you understand what I mean? I hope I've explained that well enough. Okay. So there are other people who create like a template and stuff, and I don't know, I just find this easier. And like I say, you know, this bit takes a bit of time, but once you've done this bit, the card goes together quite quickly. And we will have just a little bit more stamping and punching to do, because I need to do the sentiment. Okay, so there's just one more on the end there, but let's just leave that. And then with this one, we're going to come in from the other side. And start at the top. See, if I started at the bottom, I'm going to cut off the end of the other one. Okay, so with a bit of planning, this method I find is the easiest. And you know what? You've always got strips of white cardstock left over, or at least I have anyway. Because you know, when you're cutting your layers and things like that, I end up with loads of little spare strips, which I just hold on to, and they're perfect for this kind of thing, or creating, you know, punching your sentiments and things like that. So those, like I say, all those strips were offcuts and everything else. I haven't cut into fresh pieces of cardstock to make those at all. So just gathering those up off my desk, because they're going to end up stuck everywhere, aren't they? Okay, so load the punch pieces. The last thing to do though is to just, again, this is just a scrap out my drawer. Well, it's not a drawer, it's like a little thing on the bench there. So what did we do on the original? I think we stamped in Old Olive, didn't we? Yeah, stamped in Old Olive for the sentiment. And the outline is being done in the smoky slate. Okay, but again, you could mix that up. In fact, let's do that. Let's do it in Blackberry Bliss, just because we can. So I'm going to stamp the outline image there, like that. Now, because that's Blackberry Bliss, I'm just going to take a moment just to take that ink off. The pink inks stain photopolymer. So I just like to get it off as much as possible to minimise that staining, because it's just a thing, it's just my thing. It won't hurt them at all, it just stains them, but I just like to get it off. Okay, so there's our little frame, and then I'm just going to eyeball the sentiment in the middle there. Okay, isn't that nice? So that's the thank you out of the set, rather than the thinking of you, just to sort of mix that up just a little bit. So put that to one side to clean it off. I want that to dry. It's quite a bold sentiment, so it's just going to make sure that that's completely dry before I slide the punch over it, because you could smudge your ink. And again, this is this lovely, I think it's called Lovely Label, I think. And again, it's quite a nice standalone punch without the stamp set, so another one that you could add to your arsenal. So again, that's a nice piece that I can keep hold of. So I tend to just knock off these scrappy bits. That goes in my scrap bin, that goes in the bin, ready for something else. Okay, easy peasy now. All we've got to do is build it up. Okay, so trusty seal, that's my go-to adhesive for putting my flat layers on, because it's quick, easy and mess free. good sharp crease on the top, because top folding cards, you don't want them to do the splits on you, and they won't if you give them a nice sharp crease. Okay, the sentiment panel needs to go on with some dimensionals. So it's going to peel 3 of those off there actually, just to make sure it's nice and secure. You could probably just use 2 to be honest, but you know, to be sure. Okay, now you might think, oh no, covering up stuff, you know, but the background is there just to give you some interest in the background, so I'm just not going to worry about it. Say that on the original I've gone quite central, okay, but again you could opt to go higher, lower, but you get nothing for a pair, don't forget, if you're old enough to know what I mean by that. Okay, so we're going to pop that down there. You can add some shape to your flowers, okay, so you can do that with your fingers, you can use a ball tool or something like that. So this is my preferred method, is to use a ball tool in the palm of my hand. Just my preferred method of doing it. You do it how you want to do it, because you know, flat flowers, nah, we don't want flat flowers, do we? And then I like to what I call dry build, just so I've got an idea of where I'm going with my design. Okay, and then because these flowers are actually quite similar in size, even though there is definitely a large and a small, so you might want to just mix those up a bit. And then whilst I have used 6 on my original sample, odd numbers do look nice, so we might be going for something a bit more like that. Okay, and then we can decide where our leaves go afterwards. But again, I'm just going to sort of bend these a little bit. They're super small. If you prefer to use tweezers, there's some crafters like tweezers, so I might just do all those together in my hand like that, make it really organic. Okay, right, so we've ended up with 5 flowers by the looks of things, and I like to do this with the multi-purpose glue, and put a blob on the back of your your flower. Now that gives you a couple of things. It gives you a bit of height, but it also means you can sort of slot them together and move them around a little bit within reason. And then I tend to use this ball tool because it's the thing I have, but it could equally be the end of your pokey tool, your stylus, you take your pick tool, whatever, end of a pencil. Just helps press into the centre there without squashing them too much. Obviously if they're going in the post, they're going to end up a little bit squashed anyway, but certainly if you're hand delivering these, they're going to keep their shape a bit better. Okay, and then these sort of slot together, which is kind of cool. Maybe have that one behind, and this one slotted to the front. So you want those sort of, you know, layers there. Okay, and just using that. So that sort of stays a little bit pliable just for a minute or two, so that you've got the opportunity to move them around a little. Then we can slot in some leaves, and again sort of looking for a visual triangle of sorts. and to sort of frame the sentiment a little bit. So I think that one's got to go there. And then we can pop in a couple of the smaller ones. With a little dab of glue. And again, you can use something to help you make sure that those ends are pressed in. So for this one, the end of the pokey tool might be good because we can get in underneath those areas, but we've still got that lift from all the petals. Okay, so we didn't necessarily use all the punch pieces, and that's fine, but you know, it's probably easier to do too many and then you know, screen down what you need rather than mess about halfway through your project wondering what you're going to do. Okay, we could embellish that with all sorts of things if you wanted to, but I think I'm going to leave it clean. Okay, but pearls and diamantes and rhinestones and all that jazz, we could add all that in to give those different looks. Okay, now so I'm going to say that I definitely prefer this one, but so like I say, you've got an alternative use there, and I'm sure whatever you've got in your stash, you would find something that would work with these colours too. So just as a reminder, this was Old Olive, Blackberry Bliss and Smoky Slate. Those were the colours that we were working with, and that was for the Creative Colour Challenge. This one closed yesterday, but I entered it in, so we'll have to find out if who the winner was. And then there'll be a new challenge launching today, so keep a lookout. The link will be in the description anyway, and yeah, it'd be good for people to join in. We get regular people participating, and I do it when I can. So there we go. Hope you've enjoyed that. Lovely to see you. Take care, stay safe. I'll see you again soon. Bye.